There's this law called the law of polarity. And this law, this universal law, is all about there's good and bad in every situation. And so, like, for instance, for my traumatic brain injury, that whole incident, I see it as a gift. And I know that blows people's minds, but where I was at in my life was I was just a party girl. I have anything planned for a future or all these things. So after the accident, I realized that I didn't want to be alone anymore and that I could do so much more with my life. And I wouldn't have learned these things if I hadn't gotten that bop on the head a few times.
Today's conversation is with Dani Rosenblad James, and she took the time to call in from Sweden. So I want to say thank you very much up front. But also, this is about a story about resilience. This is something that all of us, I think, can relate to in one form or another. And the one thing that is a surprise, but not so surprising, is that it takes something traumatic for us to realize what life means to us, and also the ability to see the end of the tunnel. So please sit back, listen, and enjoy this podcast. Thanks.
Welcome to Amazing People, Amazing Things with your host, Chuck Tuck.
As long as you love it and you're enjoying life, that's probably the biggest and best thing, because I'm just going to jump right into it, Dani, and say you've gone through a lot in your life, because you had a traumatic brain injury, and then you've really bounced back from that, right?
Well, I mean, it took some time. So I had a traumatic brain injury about 11 years ago now, and it took me about 7 years to somewhat fully recover from that. And those 7 years were pretty brutal because, I mean, having your brain hurt, a lot of people, they don't physically see what's going on. And it's like those inner battles and all those inner struggles you're having. Like one instant, I was making, this is when I ate meat, and I was making like hamburger patties or something. And I completely spaced on getting rid of all the grease. So it was just like, I was doing all these patties in so much grease. So it was like pretty much getting fried just in straight up grease. And people are just like, And like when I did that, like, you know, at the time, it was like, it broke me. I started crying and stuff because it was something so common sense that we kind of take for granted, that it's so easy for us to do because it's already on autopilot. And I was broken. It wasn't on autopilot anymore. And there was another instance where I was eating applesauce out of the jar with a fork. And so it's like, that's not really the utensil you would use. But like in my head, I'm like, if I had to choose one utensil, I would always choose the fork, because if I needed a spoon, I could just have it up to my face like that. That was my thinking process.
You know, that's a good way of thinking, though. Do you mind me asking what type of injury? I mean, brain, but was this an accident that happened, or was it a viral thing that got to your brain?
So this was from a 7-car pileup, and originally I'm from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and I was on my way to go back to California where I worked at the time, and I was driving through Wyoming. The visibility was less than a mile, and the roads were black ice. And what I was thinking is, oh, if these were really bad, they would turn them off, like close the roads, right? Oh, no, no, no. They kept them open. And I luckily was the last one there in the pile. But what happened is I went on autopilot, so I just blacked out and tried to veer off the road or not hit anything. Well, you can't stop when it's black ice. And I ended up hitting the front of my truck on it, and then the back of the truck was also hit. So like my small truck turned into a convertible because the whole top was ripped off like a sardine can, which ended up giving me a huge gash here. And the officer that found me, the sheriff, he said that was the worst accident he's ever seen, and he was going to be retiring in a few weeks after that.
Wow.
And so I had to be helicoptered to Salt Lake City, Utah to get the help I needed. They induced me in a coma. I found out that I had 3 internal bleeds in my head. I had about 3 or 4 concussions on top of the traumatic brain injury. I had fractured my neck, so I almost was paralyzed for the rest of my life. If I was taller, I would have been decapitated. So, yeah, it wasn't just like one hit on the head. It was a few, and it was a lot of things on top of others.
Well, a couple things first before I make a comment on that is now I know why your English is so good without a Swedish accent.
Yes.
That's one. Number two is although it's took you 7 years, it's been 11 years ish. Congratulations on coming so far, having a family, looking so youthful, and being in such great spirits. But the comment that I want to make is this was more than just a brain trauma. It was a life altering injury because I would imagine it hurt you physically, mentally, and every single way possible, and probably gave you the scare of your life when you realized what happened.
Yeah,
So,
it definitely was a life changer, and I had I call him my soul furry, soulmate. That's a furry guy. My dog was on that trip with me, and I was so thankful that he was able, like he was untouched. Nothing bad happened to him in that. I was so thankful, and I he helped me tremendously with the healing process, along with my friend that is now my husband, the Swede. But yeah, it's something that I had to learn how to surrender, and that's a huge problem for me because I have a stubbornness that tends to get in the way. It's good because I was able to push myself to keep going forward. However, it's a double-edged sword, and sometimes it gets in the way with me realizing that I need to just rest. And that's what I mean with surrendering, is understanding when it's time just to let it be and just work on you. Because I think a lot of people, when we have really bad accidents happen to us, we tend to compare ourselves to how we used to be. And that's a great way to not help yourself. And I did
mhm.
that tremendously because it's hard to grasp that I was so broken and I couldn't do the things that I used to be able to do. And it just, I didn't like, my stubbornness was like I didn't want to accept it. But then finally, after a few years, I realized, oh wait, I kind of have to, otherwise I'll be just stuck in this limbo for the rest of my life, and I didn't want that. I wanted to get better. I wanted to be able to travel again. I wanted to be able to use my brain efficiently in some way, and I know I was kind of stopping myself. So I learned a lot of healing tools and techniques throughout it as well.
So that's what you mean as far as how to surrender to yourself and not compare yourself, not to others, but more so to yourself. As I would imagine, something like that, one may look in the mirror and say, I will never look the same again. How am I going to live? I don't want to because I don't look the way I used to, and things like that. How, I really, how did you enable yourself to surrender and to let yourself have that permission to let go?
It definitely wasn't easy. When I finally started being able to do it, it was after so many times over and over that I overdid it. Like I maybe worked too much in the day, so I ended up having to stay in bed for a day or two just to rest from what I had done. And so that just happened so many times. And then I was like, this is not, I shouldn't, what am I doing this to myself for? And so I finally started listening more to my body and realizing, oh wait, I need to rest and it's okay. And I started talking to myself as if I was a child, realizing that I needed to be my best cheerleader, my best friend instead of my worst enemy. And when I started doing that as well, that helped tremendously too.
Were you trying to overcompensate because you thought you had to? Is that why you were working yourself, your body? I mean, more than usual, maybe?
Okay, so I'll have to explain this a little bit better. I can only
Yes.
do an hour of work a day. and then my whole body would be in pain. So it was hard for me to accept just doing 1 hour a day when I was used to doing like 12 or more hours a day, because I used to be a weed farmer for 5 years. So that's working outdoors and doing all that kind of stuff. And it's a lot of work that comes into that. And I I guess my ego got in the way when it came to that as well, because it's like, hey, and comparing again, I would be comparing myself to how I used to be able to do this, and like 1 hour is nothing. So I was very upset with myself, but yeah.
But you managed to, like say, kind of take control of that or your situation and tell yourself, slow down, let your body heal, listen to your body. So is it kind of, I know in certain situations we'll say listen to the mind, then we'll say listen to the heart, but you're really listening to your body. I would imagine, at least for me, my brain would be saying, keep going, you can do it, keep going. But then my body is going, I can't. Was that the push and pull kind of sort of like that?
Yeah, 100%. And this is a reason that I said, like, my now husband saved me from myself so many times, because he would literally have to like force me to go to bed because he could see how much pain I was in. So having him there helped me so much. He helped me save myself from me. And then it was like maybe a couple years later is when I finally realized to listen to my body a lot more and to accept it and be surrendering towards myself a bit more. But that first couple years, that was a really rough road. Plus, I felt like I was missing a piece of me. And as I reflected back now, I'm pretty sure that I was missing my ego, like a big chunk of it, at least at this time, because I was able to connect with myself a lot more. And yes, I still had that stubbornness and some other things, but I've had a huge piece of me missing. And I felt frustrated and angry because I felt something was missing inside of me. And it wasn't until 2 years later that I started feeling like whole in a way.
It also sounds like, at least in the beginning parts, it's good to have a good support system or good support person.
Yes, 100%.
So that, that leads me to say, as a comment, that we should all find or have a good support system, good friends and family before any tragedy happens, right?
Yes.
It's, don't live this lonely solitude life and then something like that could happen. And I would imagine, yes, that it would be very difficult if you were going through it on your own, and then you would fall into that negativity and tell yourself, you can't do it, or you could do more than you may just overdo it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's really good to mention that if somebody it goes through something similar to this, or some kind of tragedy or something, that if you're surrounded by negative people, remove yourself from that situation and go somewhere else. So it's like when I was in the hospital, I could feel that I was just becoming a number for these doctors and nurses. Like, they just saw that all the things that had happened to me and just would only see me improve a certain amount to a certain degree. And it wasn't seeing me be able to do more or less or anything. It was just like, oh, she's going to be like this for the rest of her life. She's going to be messed up. And I just had this feeling inside of me that I needed to get out of the hospital as soon as possible. So after those 10 days in being in ICU, I was out. I passed my test and I went out, and then I was brought back to Sioux Falls, South Dakota with my parents and stayed with them for like a month and a half. And crazy me is like, oh, I need to go back to work. So I got a friend to drive and pick me up and bring me back to California. And I think it also was a subconscious thing that I knew I needed to be in nature, away from pretty much anybody, so then I could just reconnect with myself and being grounded more.
I mean, it all made logical sense with everything that you're saying. And I would imagine also, if for some folks, being in a a hospital or a care situation, they may say, oh, at 10 days, you should be this far along. At 1 month, you should be that far along. But you're telling yourself, no, I want to get better. Let's make me better earlier. And they may be holding you back. It kind of sounds like that's what the situation that you're kind of in.
Yeah, that's how I felt. And they also wanted to give me some medicine to help with the pain, to alleviate it. And I consistently said no. So I know.
Just give me some weed.
No, it's like I knew that I needed to feel what my body could do and couldn't, because I
Yeah.
remembered that about myself is I overdo it. So if I can't feel the pain, I'm going to overdo it, which in the end it would screw my future up. I would probably hurt myself in the longer run, and I didn't want that to happen. And I know the doctor was a little upset at me, but hey, I knew me. He isn't me, so he doesn't know that.
That's a good point that you're making. One should know, and most people probably know their bodies better than anybody else, so they can tell whoever, you know what, my body hurts right now, I'm stopping, or my body says I can go a little bit more. So I'm glad you said that, so people really understand that it's okay to know their body and to say yes or to say no to somebody. I'm not a doctor or anything, but I would imagine even to an authoritative person, you can say, wait, one way or the other, body says I got to stop now, or body says I can go. Now, since you've done all this, you've also become an international best-selling author too, right? And it's kind of a memoir, but also based on travel and things like that, is it?
Yeah, and I say it's loosely based on my traumatic brain injury just because I've changed people's names and changed a little bit of things here and there just because it's, dealing with the weed and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's still not 100% legal everywhere, is it?
Yeah. Well, and this also was 11 years ago, so
Yeah.
different times.
That is so true, so true. What is one of the biggest things? I know that during our conversation, you've kind of said this already, but if somebody was to go through a traumatic incident, whether it be an injury or just, I'm even going to throw depression in there because that is traumatic in itself. What would you tell people to help start themselves in the right direction again?
I would say that journaling helps a lot. And I know that a lot of people are like, oh, whatever. But it's like when you journal, you have to remember not to judge yourself, whatever you're writing, and don't edit it. So you're just putting the pen to your paper and you're letting it flow out of you. So like, for instance, I would ask myself some questions and be like, why am I feeling like this? Why am I so upset? And of course, at first, it's just like, well, I don't know, just because this sucks, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you just keep letting it flow and you'll find out at the end, like, what is going on, what truly is going on inside of you. And that's a great tip. And I know there are people out there that they maybe have an injury or something that they can't write. Then this means that you can go within. You can start imagining how you want your life to be. And then you start putting the emotions that come with that, how you would feel, how you would react, how you would be as a person. And then just keep doing that. Because like for me, I woke up out of my coma and I was just like, now what? And this is when I heard that inner voice say to me that this is but a moment. And when I heard that, I realized that I get to choose what happens next. That I'm the one that makes the next choice, and that is up to me. So I had to relearn how to walk, how to use my brain, work on my equilibrium, all these things. And I don't think I would have been able to realize that I could fully do that without hearing that voice and then getting that feeling of a full knowing that that wasn't my future. It wasn't going to be stuck in that bed for the rest of my life. It's over there, traveling, doing all the things I want to do. And so I had an image of myself, my future self that was me in the present. And I kept believing in it like full 150% in that person of me. And it was going to be real.
I'm glad you said that you had and you made the choice, because I do believe no matter what, we all have a choice. For better or for worse, there is a choice. And you chose to to better yourself instead of staying stagnant and letting that trauma run your life. So that's a difficult thing to do. I think so.
Yeah, I think it is, and I I think that I was probably able to do it because of my circumstances in life, the situations I've grown up with, all of these kinds of things turned me into the person that I was when it all happened. So everything aligned up correctly for me. And then there are, of course, if you don't have that mindset and you want to make it happen, it's just start practicing and work on fully believing and trusting yourself. Those are great ways to work on being there fully for yourself.
Now, do you think, there are times that people have these, forgive me if I say it wrong, but these dream boards kind of things? They have the pictures of what they want their life to be and stuff. Do you think that could help?
Yeah, like vision boards.
Yes, vision boards. Thanks.
Yes, they can help you 100%, but you also have to make sure you're listening to yourself, because I've also heard that it can do the opposite for certain people, where they see their vision board and they kind of get like a gut wrenching feeling like, this is never going to happen, or start thinking that, oh, this is so fantasy. So then that means that's maybe not what you should do. But for other people, it can be amazing, because if they add the emotions, they start visually seeing the whole thing. So, like, for instance, this is what I did for my book, and then it turned it into an international bestseller. So it's like I imagined my book becoming an international bestseller, and I was thinking the feelings that I would feel. I'd be overjoyed. I would probably be having tears of joy coming down, and I was just so ecstatic. And those were like the feelings that I imagined for myself. And then I also imagined being near my husband and my son and having just a fun day together. And like, it's good to imagine it almost down to the exact detail of every single thing you could possibly can, because then it becomes so much more real in your mind.
I can also see what you're saying as far as it could set some people back, because they may over imagine what they can accomplish in too short of a time, and then get frustrated and then give up and then go into a depression or whatever it might be. So yeah, I guess that caution would be, make it something that's realistic.
Yeah. Yeah, and I studied at Proctor Gallagher Institute over the mindset for like a year or so. And something that he said repetitively is the law of gender. And that's all about, they don't know the time limit. So it's like you might give yourself a time limit, like, oh, I'm supposed to do this in a couple years. And then that couple years passes, and then you lose that trust and faith in it. But that you can't give up, because it's just, we don't know the exact time that these things will actually happen for you. It's just like we don't, like, we know when a baby will come. We know that limit, but we don't know the limit of making certain dreams happen into reality, because everyone's battling inner demons all on their own at different courses and all these kinds of things going on with them. So everyone's at their own level.
Everything that you're saying is so true and so good, and such good information that everybody, I think, should listen to, because you're so right. No matter what we're doing, we are individuals and our timelines are different. How long it takes for you to accomplish something is going to be different from me. And also, even using that word gender, male to female, what have you, it doesn't mean that I'm going to walk sooner than you are, type of thing. So it's we are all individuals, and don't compare yourself, I would imagine, to somebody else who did it in 2 weeks and you're 3 weeks in. It could take you 3 months or 3 years.
Yes, definitely.
So that leads me to ask kind of what I asked at the very beginning. In that situation too, what is it that keeps you, or what kept you going?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it was, I kept seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Like, I kept seeing myself over there and how I was able to do all of these different things. And as you probably realized, I did things quite quickly. So it was like it was the first year I went on a hike in Yosemite National Park. And of course, I thought, yeah, let's see the Yosemite Falls. So we did that hike, it's pretty hard. And I ended up having to rest every couple minutes going up there because I had such a horrible head pains. And I just remember having these tears streaming down and just like, what am I doing? But I had this feeling inside of me that if I stopped now, I would make this a limiting belief, which I wouldn't be able to overcome as easily. So I kept pushing myself and listened to my body. So that's why I stopped every few minutes here and there. And like my husband and my dog, I told them, please just keep going because I know this is going to take me a while. And I knew I needed to take this and do it on my own. So they went ahead and went along. And the times that I started feeling like just giving up, a hiker came down like the same moment and was like, oh, you're doing great, just a little bit more. And like that just kept happening every time I was about to give in. And so I was so thankful because it was like, when people talk about it's about the journey, heck yeah, like that whole thing was all about the journey to get to that viewpoint. And when I got there, that was the most beautiful view I've ever seen my entire life because of the journey I had to go through to get to it.
This all definitely sounds like self-discovery.
Yeah.
It's now I need to make sure that everybody knows who I'm having this conversation with, and we've been getting all this wealth of information. And I've been calling you Danny, but you're really Danielle, right?
Yeah, but
Danielle Rosenblad?
yes.
Is it
So I go Dani Rosenblad James.
James? And how are people going to find you, more information about you and your book?
Yeah, so you can find me on misfitwanders.com. That's my travel blog. And I've also recently started a community where I help people write and publish their own book. And so that one is called The Storyteller's Path, and it's on the school platform. And I love helping people write their stories, especially if they're personal experience stories like mine or just their own, because I know everyone has a story to tell and everyone's story matters.
Well, there you go. Perfect way. If anything happens, you start journaling it and then turn it into a best-selling book.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. But as you said too, everyone has a story. So going along with that, I mean that's a great motivator that everyone does have a story. Whether you want to publish it for others to know, it's probably good for you to have to reflect on at some point in time in life. I would imagine that many of us, well, maybe we have some regret or we might have forgotten something, but if it's in our journal, there it is to look back and once again to reflect. And I think reflecting on one's past can be of a benefit to a lot of us.
Yeah. And I think it's really good for people to think like, what if you get your story out there? Like, how many people will you be able to help with that? Because, I mean, there are so many people out there that have similar issues or things. Like, there's 8 billion people in the world. And I know that someone's story, if they're strong enough, if they're brave enough to get it out there, it can help the ones that feel like they have no voice. And to help them say, hey, that's my story. Thank you so much for getting it out there. It gave me the courage to speak up.
Yeah. Which I'm sure right now, your story in our conversation is resonating with someone. It doesn't matter if it's just one person, that's at least someone else that you are able to help. So, and do you have a podcast or anything as well?
No, I've thought about it, but besides having the international bestseller and then the writing community and my travel blog, I'm kind of a little bit...
And a 3-year-old.
And a 3-year-old, and I'm working on making women networking here in Sweden, so I'm a little busy.
Your plate is full.
Yeah, there's probably some things I didn't even mention that I'm doing too.
Oh my gosh. Well, I once again, I just want to say thank you very much for your courage. Uh, this is a timeless thing. You said it happened just about 11 years ago, but this is a story that is timeless, and this is something that's going to help people today, tomorrow, and years to come. So again, thank you very much for your courage, for sharing your story, and helping others enable themselves to help others.
Yeah.
It's just spreading that love and knowledge. So thank you on that. Danny, was there anything else that you wanted to add in there? I was,
I would have to say that there's this law called the law of polarity. And this law, this universal law, is all about there's good and bad in every situation. And so, like, for instance, for my traumatic brain injury, that whole incident, I see it as a gift. And I know that blows people's minds, but where I was at in my life was I was just a party girl. I have anything planned for a future or all these things. So after the accident, I realized that I didn't want to be alone anymore and that I could do so much more with my life. And I wouldn't have learned these things if I hadn't gotten that bop on the head a few times. So that's just how I look at it. And I just hope more people have open mind to different ways to look at bad situations. And it might not be easy to see at first, but stay positive in the situations and just look for the good and you'll find it eventually.